Hello, welcome to Tech with Briley. Today we're going to continue working on the Wagtail vector search blog. In the last session we went ahead and created a blog with the Wagtail content management system. This very simple project allows us to define blog posts and a blog index page. There's really not a lot to it. The main purpose is so that we'll have some content that we can start to feed to a vector database. We also have a dev container configuration to make it really easy to get the project running locally, including the backing database, which is Postgres with the PG vector extension. In this session, we're going to work with the Wagtail vector index plugin and a chat that I've been having with Claude to kind of sketch out the overall architecture here. So we've got a basic structure. We'll need to install the Wagtail vector search plugin and annotate our model. With the vector search fields, we're going to deviate from this a little bit, but I'm reading the code as I go. So our model is defined in the blog app under models.py. We do have an intro field. So we might go ahead and add the body field. Oh, sorry, this is the blog index page. For the blog post, it's essentially a post, but it's inheriting from the page model, so we call it a page. We have an intro and a body. We can use OpenAI embedding provider, which means we'll have to specify this key in our environment. So that's an additional dependency we will add. The Django environment package. We'll need it's optional, but it's helpful because it automatically loads the env file. So we'll update our requirements text real quick to include Django environment. And if I just look at the latest release, we are at 0.11.2. So we'll just make sure we grab that. Then in our settings, make sure I get the right package here. actually is python.env. And we're going to go greater than or equal to 1. So our 0.1 and less than 2. Yes. We'll use the getting started. We will need a .env example and a .env. .env is in our git ignore, so it won't be committed, but I will need to create the example so that other developers can get started with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to use essentially our OpenAI API key. I have a hard time saying that one. And what I'll need to do is set mine off stream real quick. And I'm in debug mode, so if it gets exposed, I'll just have to revoke it. Okay, so we have the environment variable created, python.env here loaded. And I'll go ahead and add I don't know if python.env is better than Django environment, to be honest. It's more generic, so I think we should be good. And then we're going to need a Wagtail vector index. So we'll just go ahead and install that. And let's go ahead and create a branch. And So I think I'll have to actually start using, this is a bit tricky because I'm not using poetry. So I'd like to define my kind of top level dependencies generically like this and let the transient dependencies get pulled in. But I don't know when I install something like this with the square brackets, how that'll get resolved. And I'm pretty sure we're going to need a light LLM and PG vector. So let's go ahead and install everybody. And we'll pip freeze, and that's going to kind of override this. There we go. And then what we'll do is run this. I think this is going to have a hard time resolving because I'm using C shell. No? All right. So now we have quite a number of dependencies, and it's hard to tell what depended on what. Anyway, I'm hopeful for a day when we have a unified Python package manager that kind of comes standard as the one and only true way, an obvious way of installing, maintaining Python packages using PyProject TOML. But until then, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use requirements text. Cool. So it looks like we've got it installed. Now, this is interesting. I don't think we're going to need the chat backend right now, but we're going to add the AI backend configuration. So let's actually first start with committing these changes. Publish that later. So I'll hop over to our app core settings and base, and I'm going to put the chat backend in there anyway. And then migrate that in. Sorry, I need to install the app. Then I can migrate that in. So that's the installation done. And then we'll say getting started. Well, an embedding is a big list, a vector of floating point numbers that represent your content in some way. Models like OpenAI's ADA 002 can take content and turn it into a list of numbers such that the content is similar, will have similar list of numbers. This way, when you provide a query, we can use the same model to get an embedding of that query and do some math, cosine similarity, to see what content your vector database is similar to your query. So we'll have a page model, and we're going to add this vector mix in. So we'll go to our blog page, and then what we're going to do is actually create some blog pages, and hopefully I'll be able to create fixtures out of those, so we'll be able to rerun this later. I haven't figured the fixture part out with Wagtail. I hope they've improved their documentation since the last time I tried it about a year ago. So no longer in our core model, we'll hop over to the blog models, and we're going to vector index these blog pages. So we need to import the Wagtail vector index storage, and we'll use this vector index mix in the blog page. Then we will specify the embedding fields similarly to how the search fields were specified. And the title is one, the body, and maybe the intro. Let me get this cleaned up a little bit. Rough is not running, but I think we'll do yeah, might as well do the intro. What's going on? Formatting here. There we go. Format. Configure that. Rough. And let me see if I can actually add rough as the formatter in the dev container. We'll rebuild it, see if that works. Install the dependencies. So this is the experience when you start up the project. If you've got Docker installed and dev containers installed in your VS Code, it's going to create the image, install the dependencies, install any plugins that are defined, Django and Python related plugins. And then I can close that, and then hopefully that we will have this nice format on save. So for example, if we come back down here and I take that trailing comma out, or maybe if I do something like this, what do I format? Okay. Still didn't configure the defaults, something weird there. Try one more time real quick. There we go. Rebuild it one more time. That way we get cleanly, consistently formatted code. We don't have to have lint wars. Now, okay. Now it has to install this package, so it's taking some time. These yellow squiggles should go away once the packages are installed. There it goes. All right, we're good to go. Now, if I do something funky, like that, we got formatting. Good. I like it. I like it a lot. These dev containers are actually really nice for getting ready-made development environments. So people can just jump into a project and start committing. All right. Now, I haven't seen much mention of the OpenAI API key, so I'm curious how that's going to get pulled in. Because it didn't really say that in the installation guide. Maybe I glossed over it. Storage providers, PG vector. If it's going to use data O2. Okay, so it's just read directly. So I still need to then load this. .env. And we'll do it on the app that bootstrapping, basically in the settings, even though we're not actually using it there. That's the working tree, but let's go and commit that. All as part of the, actually I'm going to lint this real quick. Database URL, trailing comma. I just like trailing commas, even though it creates more vertical lines. Just makes it easier to see what's going on. All right. This is kind of the Dart way also. With Dart, the Flutter code gets formatted like this. It has made me appreciate the readability improvements there. Okay, so we're just going to commit that. I installed it, and in our model I've annotated, and we have a lot of formatting going on, double quotes, things like that. So yeah, it's a bit of a hectic commit, but essentially what we've done is configured the blog page embeddings. Okay, now comes a little bit of fun. Let's use Claude or ChatGPT for that matter to save our Claude tokens. Okay. I'm creating an open source project based on the Wagtail content management system. It will be a blog with vector search indexing enabled so that when we create blog posts, they will automatically be indexed in a vector database, specifically PG vector. While that's not salient to the current task I'm going to ask for, I think it's good background. In order to test the vectorization of these blog posts, I would like to create some meaningful posts or content for this hypothetical blog that I will then end up trying to save as Django fixtures. I'm not sure if that'll be successful either. In any case, since this is a Wagtail in Django based project, as well as involving the concept of vector databases and Postgres, it would be nice to generate some example blog posts covering the topics involved in the creation of this project, the relevant topics. So a little bit of meta. So we will actually generate some blog posts that I will save into the database and then export as fixtures. What would be 15 to 20 example articles, blog posts that we could include in the content that would be relevant to the project's goals and functionality? So we're just going to get some content here. First, the ideas. We'll start a little bit broad. Giving the background will help the large language model think of maybe more appropriate blog posts. Introduction to Wagtail CMS, setting up a Wagtail project, building custom pages in Wagtail. Interesting, so it's hitting heavy on Wagtail. Okay, so then what we're going to do is basically I'm not really confident that I could have it give me accurate instructions for like integrating Django with Wagtail and things like that. So I'm going to ask it for more theoretical articles. I've noticed that a lot of the article ideas above are kind of step-by-step tutorials. And while those might be valuable, I don't want to spend too much time ensuring the correctness of the tutorials and the up-to-date code snippets and such. So let's actually think more at a theoretical level and describe the concepts involved in the project, such as what is a web framework in the context of a Django web framework? How does that compare with something like a library like React or Vue, which are also sometimes called web frameworks, or even Next.js, which is an example of a popular JavaScript web framework that differs significantly in its capabilities and focus from a Django, or other theoretical ideas such as what is a vector database, what is PG vector, what are embeddings, what is a content management system, what is the Wagtail content management system. Let's come up with 15 to 20 hypothetical blog posts that we could generate with some certainty of accuracy that I could then use as the basis of the fixtures for this project. An LP. Just pop that one in there. What is a web framework? Understanding Django as a web framework. So those are pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to generate a couple of these. Thank you. The task will be to generate blog posts that are 300 to 500 words each for these topics. We'll go one by one and we will start with outlines. So let's first generate an outline for the first article. What is a web framework? This will be the basis of a 300 to 500 word blog post. Hey Teres, welcome. How you doing? How you doing? Welcome to the channel. you can check out the source code what we're working on here in GitHub. And I'm just generating some content so we can actually test these vector embeddings. Thank you. Please write a 300 to 500 word blog article that follows the outline for what is a web framework. This would be an interesting job for an agent-based pipeline using length of 300 to 500 words is actually pretty good in size. And okay, but hey, we got something. And we're going to pop this into our database now. I'm just going to repeat this process a little bit. In the rapidly evolving world, the writing is going to be cliche. Made a video a couple days how to use ChatGPT. Oh, how it stagnates your professionalism. Okay, interesting. I've found it accelerates my work. In fact, like this project has been possible because of, and the other project I've been working on has been basically possible because these large language models have given me a lot of clarity and helped me kind of amplify my thinking and consolidate my thinking and learn even the nuances of frameworks like Flutter. Yeah, maybe it would. I don't know. I guess so. If you become overly reliant on that and you stop learning the theory and the underpinnings, I suppose that would make sense. You have to still kind of probably understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And they've also given me the ability to focus more intent for my hypothetical blog. It's like quite interesting. But what are some of the main ways that you believe it stagnates you in the long run? And what is the long run too? Because how long have we had these out here in terms of a career, professional, like a career spanning how many years? So what's our baseline to compare it against? So benchmark, it's an interesting way of thinking about it too. How long have you been using the large language models professionally? So add a blog page, paste it. Oh yeah, that was the intro. And we'll hop back over to GPT and we'll just kind of go back through here. And don't tell this to my boss because they're my employer is like all in on these large language models for all the staff, not just engineers. In other words, like marketing and support, and they're using these and various functions in the organization. We're learning the nuances and the trade-offs, the strengths and weaknesses, how they can fit into our existing workflows, and yeah. Yeah, that's one problem with the fast-moving ecosystem. Like perhaps the GitHub Actions, they maybe have changed the formats, but yeah, let's see. But that's not necessarily unique to ChatGPT. I suppose if you're reading a blog post written 2 years ago and you were just following one, even things like 6 months ago for fast-moving ecosystems like React, that could have the same effect. So I don't think that's necessarily unique to these large language models, to be honest. But yeah, it's certainly something you want to be considerate of. Yeah, and it's hard to tell, where they're sourcing the materials from and when it was written. So yeah, and you can even see that, for example, with these frameworks, like it's generating code from a version of Flutter from like 6 months ago, which is like eons in JavaScript. blog post would have comments like the date it was written, or the potential of pointing out incorrect information. Yeah, that's true. Blog posts might have comments, but I just don't think it's black and white, and it's really hard to say definitively that, like, making such broad stroke claims. It's very subjective, and it depends on your career and like a lot of factors, and the evolution of these, like language models, and in your mindset of how you use them. There's so many factors to say that it's going to stagnate you. I don't know how we would really be able to substantiate that, because I can show just as many ways that it's accelerating my capabilities as a professional software engineer on a daily basis, and my teams, and like my writing and my communication, writing, everything from like requests for comments to like postmortems, and Slack comments and response emails, support emails. Like, communication is really helpful with that. I don't just take the output directly and paste it into Slack or something. We have to have a literacy around these, so like a media literacy. Let's see, this is already what's called a leading question. If you can ask it, tell me how generative AI tools hinders one's ability to do research on the internet, how it leads to long-term stagnation of the person as a professional. You're going to get what you ask for. But you can ask a more neutral question, like think journalistically, and you can ask a less biased question. For example, here's an alternative phrasing of that. So let's ask GPT for a less biased alternative phrasing of this question. Actually, Claude, I like, let's see. Phrasing provided contains specific bias, implying that generative AI tools hinder research abilities and lead to professional stagnation. To present this topic more neutrally, we could rephrase the question to allow for a broader range of potential outcomes, both positive and negative. Here's a more balanced way to phrase the question. What are the potential impacts, both positive and negative, of using generative AI tools on an individual's research skills and long-term professional development? This rephrasing doesn't presume a specific outcome, positive or negative. It allows for discussion of both benefits and drawbacks. It keeps the focus on the research skills and professional development, and invites a more comprehensive exploration of the topic. This neutral phrasing encourages a more balanced and thoughtful discussion about the role of generative AI in professional settings. I think that's a good approach. Why don't they abbreviate Gen AI? That's a good question. That seems like a nice abbreviation. Does it have a different meaning, or? Because yeah, Gen AI, it kind of flows off the tongue. So let's see. Let's use this question. Well, let's do an A/B test. This is now, you got me curious. So like, I'll create a new one. We'll call this A. And we'll do another one. We'll call this and let me ask this without, see, I added a little bit of leading stuff. Let's just get a little bit more pure with it and just go. The original question is indeed leading as it presupposes negative effects on using generative AI tools. A more neutral way to phrase this question could be, what are the potential impacts of using generative AI tools on an individual's research skills and long-term professional development? So let's just try that. It's a little more straightforward. Okay, so we got that one. And I want to start a fresh context window so we don't have the previous response. Positive impact. So right now we're getting pros and cons. And I think that's also really an important skill in just general research, problem solving, critical thinking. We need to think more holistically. Okay. So yeah. Well, so it's pretty happy, I guess. So yeah, I've had this experience. It's helped me with my efficiency and productivity, and particularly with like automating tasks like boilerplate tests. I haven't really worked with data collection and analysis. Preliminary writing, though, it does really help me with preliminary writing. Yeah, nobody's saying that. I mean, I haven't seen the claim made that anything is reliable, even human output, right? I think that's inherent. That's why we have media literacy. We have to understand that the information we encounter has bias, it has flaws, it has inaccuracies, and worse sometimes. I think we're having maybe too much of a expectation, too high of expectations that the generative nature of these things are going to be deterministic and factual, when really nothing that has been trained on it can be even made. That claim can't even be made for the human output that these have been trained on. So, but let alone that the understanding of how they work is that they're probabilistic. So probabilities aren't reliable by nature. They're inherently non-deterministic, to my best of my knowledge. Yeah, Gen AI is probabilistic, so it's not reliable, but it is useful. And that's what we're getting at. It's like, to what degree is it useful? Let's get out of black and white thinking. Let's say it's not reliable, thus it's not useful, because you're only actually harming your own ability to engage with these tools effectively, and in general with information, by thinking, well, newspapers aren't reliable, so I'm not going to read newspapers. Yeah, that's actually good. I've seen that. That's really interesting phrasing of it too. I've seen it phrased, and there was a research paper in about this, that maybe like that BS is a better phrase for it than hallucinations, for example. And humans are BSers as well. We BS, and we do the best with the limited information we have in our experience, and try to improve our own output and prompt each other for better output as well. But I think there's some parallels that are available here. And if we get out of this dualistic thinking, has to be all good or all evil, all good or all bad, I think we'll find there's some nuance. And in that nuance, there's a lot of interesting stuff we can do with these tools. What was that? This is the article, I guess you can download here. Yeah, it kind of goes along, basically along the lines you're saying. It's saying, if we use the phrase hallucinations, it's going to it's like a form of, we're projecting kind of like concepts of consciousness and other intentions onto the models that just they're not really capable of, and they're not. It's sort of like an anthropomorphism. It's kind of like saying, creating, attributing human-like characteristics to them, or conscious characteristics of consciousness, like hallucinations. But even BS is like a kind of a thing that conscious, intelligent beings do. So that might even be kind of a bit loading, but I like the word non-deterministic, the phrase non-deterministic or whatever, because it's, I guess it's a word, more accurate to what they are. They're probabilistic BS generators, you could say. Yeah, very cool. Interesting discussion. But let's get back to like, but yeah, so just key takeaway, I think, is we need to, if we reframe these discussions, and in not just in terms of the generative AI, but when we're thinking critically about anything, about some like news segment we see, or an article, or a conversation we have, or competing solutions for a technical architecture or anything like that, we try to be cautious about how we phrase and how we frame the issue, and we'll get a better result. So let's go back to this. We're going to write some blog posts. We're never going to get a perfect result. Spatula. I was like trying to think, what's the word for spatula? The thing, the spatula that you use the frosting bowl, the rubber spatula, and you eat the frosting off of that afterwards. I guess it's just a spatula. But anyway, so just weird things I'm talking to GPT about and is helping me, right? Just there's lots of ways they can be helpful, even though they're BS generators. All right, next. Yeah, cool, and it's nice to see you around, Terrace. What are you working on? You got any open source projects or similar engineering stuff? Let's go for like 200 to 300. Command line tool called stacks. Okay, so systems level programming. All right, what language are you using? Go or Rust or Zig? I'm kind of interested in, I'm following the developments of those languages in particular. Dart, cool. Nice. I think because of all these languages, if I were to pick an alternative to Python, which is my main driver, my main daily driver, I'm really interested in Dart. I really like that language. I've worked with JavaScript quite a lot, worked with Python quite a lot, and I do that professionally. But I'm just really enjoying the developer experience with Flutter and Dart. All right, so let's create another post here. Now, one thing, Wagtail isn't really enjoying the markdown. If I copy this, does it give me like proper headers? Yeah, a little bit better. All right, so that's that. Try to use ChatGPT to help with AOSP. It's not very good. Your YouTube channel, AI Resistance. Okay, so we can see some bias in that. I've written an article recently that kind of outlines my philosophy on the way we can approach issues like technology and GPT in a more nuanced way that's not so like extreme, in which is using this tool called discernment, and it's basically a way of collectively investigating an issue. And these can be lots of issues: political issues like climate change, or social issues like civil rights or women's suffrage, or the role of technology in our lives. And it gets us through this discernment process. It puts us in a more neutral standing where we can look at things with curiosity and kind of try to be a little bit objective, but also communicating with others and getting their perspective, which may differ from ours. Like your and mine is sort of, there's some truth in between what you are and I are saying, what we're perceiving, right? Neither of us has a monopoly on the truth. Yeah, and it gets us out of the extremes of like complete rejection, like almost like this. The Luddites were famous for destroying the factories as an extreme response to the industrialization of labor, after having tried to go through channels of power and authority which were denying them, because there was no sense and conception of like democracy and direct governance at that point, or collectivization of labor. But in any case, they famously smashed the factory, the looms machinery, and so now we think of Luddites as being just anti-technologists. To the other extreme is accelerationists that say, oh, we have to do it or else somebody else will, so we have to be there first. And there's a lot more truth and nuance in between, and we get more balance when we kind of don't go to the extremes. Yeah, and that's another example of an extreme. I hate government regulation, but does he drive a car? And does he appreciate the safety standards, or fly in a plane? I mean, there's like, it's not black or white either. There's a lot of regulations, or live in a house, like with plumbing and clean water. And there's a lot of ways that government and on various levels supports us, and regulations that kind of promote quality of life that we do collectively. And that's essentially what government is. It's like a way of collective governance, and it's not all good either. And the United States political system is an example of that. There's can be extreme dysfunction as well, but it's again getting out of this extreme polarity that we seem to be like just so prone to find ourselves trapped in, these polarities. Yeah, that's interesting. And have you, what do you think about like Sam Altman and the AI kind of pioneers, their role in the regulation of AI? Yeah, right. And I think, there was discussions about maybe in the European Union or United Kingdom, I can't remember now, about mandatory labels for AI generated content. Like these blog posts, I would have to, even though this is not an actual blog, but you know, I would need to label that, like food labels for essentially your content. No generative AI was used in this article. Because I remember Sam Altman, for example, was testifying in Congress about, oh, it's important that we be regulated, but let us help you define the regulations, which seems like it's prone for regulatory capture. That's good. Oops, I already did that one. I'm gonna grab this one. So we're only gonna do a few of these, and let's get some vectorization going, but you can kind of get the idea of how I'm gonna get the content. So we have meaningful vector search and distinctive results. Comparing web frameworks, Django to web framework. What is a web framework? So our content is pretty skewed, but if I ask it web frameworky questions, what I'm hoping I'll get is web frameworky answers and the citations of where it got the information on this site specifically. Yeah, it's like capture the flag. Sounds like a good game. So let's do Article 7. Although I should include a Wagtail CMS article, but all right. And all the AI generated stuff should be recorded, and all interaction with systems be recorded. Well, that sounds like mass surveillance. I don't know how they're going to record that without recording, like, I mean, through logging or some kind of, and that sounds kind of invasive. It also might put, you know, like, what if I'm running a large language model locally? Because, you know, for example, there are several of these models, Llama, that is 8 billion parameter addition of that. I can run that locally here in Llama file. I can show you that one. Let's see. Oh, Llama run Llama 3, right? Let's see, I think about it installed. Send a message. Hello, Llama. Hello there, fellow creature of the Andes. What? Offers a friendly llama-sized nod. What brings you to the neck of the woods? Do you have a question, or perhaps a craving for some delicious grass and sunshine? I'm all ears, or should I say all fur, and ready to chat. They should be surveilled. So then, are you comfortable having some sort of surveillance mechanism, which we probably already have, in fairness? Like Microsoft Windows is famously like an adware operating system at this point. But every interaction you do, because how are they going to differentiate, you know, you using a spreadsheet from you using OLAMA? How, like, is there going to be a persistent process that's just going to benignly wait for you to launch OLAMA or some other large language model that may be an off-the-shelf one generated by another? There's dozens of these coming up, and it's not just the major players who are able to start creating them. The knowledge of how to create generative AI, at least, is, you know, kind of public, and people are training models on various scales. It should be part of Llama. So yeah, I just don't know how in practice that would be regulated, or what kind of implications I could have for having surveillance built into my devices, because it's not just the laptops, but my phone. I can run these on my phone. And granted, you know, the surveillance is not just a topic of these large language models. We have surveillance capitalism is deeply entrenched in our digital lives, but nonetheless, I don't know if I support that sort of. I think that reflexive reaction could be well intended to have them surveillance, but it could have really broad implications and unexpected consequences. Like what then would be, it's like kind of the same conversation about backdooring encryption and having a backdoor into private chats for the sake of the many ostensibly for many like important, meaningful reasons, but the consequences of that probably outweigh. I don't know. It's not black and white, and there's a lot of debate, and people in the tech community are, for example, pushing back on the encryption backdoors legislation that's been proposed multiple times in the United States and European Union. So it's the same thing though. It's like there's a new technology that's potentially powerful and profound and can be freely used and distributed, such as encryption algorithms or large language models. And the conversation moving towards mass surveillance, I think that's a dangerous reflex. And if you just look at some of the debate and discussion about the concerns of mass surveillance and the suggestions that people have made, with good intention to make encryption algorithms weaker so that we can surveil people's private communications for things like child protection and very important reasons in police, the effectiveness of police investigations, but the potential downfalls or side effects and abuses that would emerge from those could be transcendent in terms of the scale. But it's the same argument. That's what I'm getting at. It's very similar. It's a parallel. I'm drawing a parallel between people who are concerned about encryption and privacy in the name of protecting children or whatever other reasons, or solving other crimes. They're saying we need to weaken encryption or introduce the ability to surveil people beyond the barrier of encryption. That's the similar argument that you're kind of posing about the usage of large language models. We need to have some mechanism that allows us to surveil the use of these large language models on a massive scale and for every use on every device. It's very similar argument, and I don't think it's thinking holistically. So I'm trying to use a parallel to kind of shine some light on that argument. Well, yeah, it depends. What's your definition of human rights? Like the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights kind of thing. So yeah, having privacy. And so surveilling AI, and what I'm getting at is surveilling AI and having the ability to have encrypted communication is new. I don't think it's enshrined in any sort of human rights document, the encryption itself. We have the right to communicate and freely assemble and privacy, but encryption is a mechanism for that. But what we're saying is that we want to protect privacy, but then we're willing to have mass surveillance so that we can detect the usage of large language models on people's devices. Because I don't know a way you could detect the use of a large language model. The models themselves don't have the functionality. They're just probabilistic language interpreters and generators. And so we would need an external mechanism, a wrapping mechanism on the actual service we're invoking to interact with the large language models, like my local llama file or ollama. And that would have to come on my device, and you'd have to have monitor on my device to look for the invocation of these utilities that you could think of it as like command line utility or whatever. Otherwise, it's just like, or it's kind of, you could think of it like people might want to stop people from using BitTorrent because BitTorrent isn't a right and it violates, people using BitTorrent to violate laws. So we should maybe put something on people's computers to prevent them from using BitTorrent, because we've deemed it the overarching use of BitTorrent to be illegal distribution of copyright materials. And this is somewhat along that line as well. So we have precedent of efforts to criminalize technology and to regulate the use and even surveil the use, or to fetter the use of technology. And you can look at the Electronic Frontier Foundation for some of the counterpoints to this. For vendors of AI, okay, but yeah, so like, what's the scale of a vendor? So that's probably what you're getting towards, more the EU level. But then how is that going to affect, like, I get some output from an AI. Does that mean I have to copy and paste the attribution? Because when you think about it, what's the output of the generative AI? An image, some text. So when I'm writing my blog post with AI or writing my code, do I have to always attribute code? Because I think that was the original concern, that the use of these AIs is not transparent. Wasn't that it? So that we need to have transparency from the perspective of the consumer of the content. So on a social network or reading a blog post, that this was generated by AI. So regulating the vendors, there's still me in between them, the user of this AI who's generating that content for whatever my purposes are. So you're probably going to have an argument that I need to be regulated at some point. Start with the vendors, but actually we need to have a law that says if you use generative AI, you have to say you use generative AI, which is probably under consideration. People are probably debating that. But if you just stop or step back or whatever, then look at what was your goal? What's the initial goal? Like, if you had to summarize it in a problem statement, we have this problem, X, thus we can use this solution, Y. What was the problem statement? And does that solution directly address the problem statement? What are some alternative solutions to that? And what are the trade-offs of the problem as well? Because we have to remember to think more broadly, non-binary thinking around the thing we're trying to solve, because it's not always a problem. We have to take a balanced approach in looking at these issues. All right, so now we have vector database articles. So I think we're getting pretty good. And if I hop over to my blog page, live, we'll just see, now I got those. The one problem actually is that it's showing the whole article. So I'll just fix this in the code real quick. I just want to show the intro. So we'll hop back over to this and I'll go to my blog templates. And on the blog page, instead of showing the body, we're just, wait a minute, sorry, this is blog index page. We just want to show the intro, and that's the full text is when you click into it. So that's a little bit of a cleanup. Yeah, not bad. I'm not really focused too much on style here, but I will bring those down a little bit. I think it's header size. Let me think about that. What's the class? Typography. Class H. Okay. Let's say H4. This is the separation of concerns. We want the semantic H2, but maybe the size and the aesthetic, or the yeah, H4. The aesthetic to be H4. Looks good. All right, cool. Oh, you guys didn't want to save it. No one is liable for AI generated content. That's true. And people aren't necessarily liable for human generated content. To a certain extent, there are libel laws and things like that. And I think that's another important point to consider, is it's actually not the content that's the problem, it's the use of the content. And you can draw parallels with arguments about drugs or guns. It's not the it's not the marijuana plant or the handgun or the knife that's the problem. It's how people are using them. Now, I'm not, I know that we have in the United States a really big problem with gun violence. So I'm not really trying to discount that, but I'm just really pointing out that it's the people that are the problem. And we need to look at the people, and we're focusing on the tool, on this generative AI, and it's not inherently the problem. But it's humans that are using the content. The generative AI content is used in systems that people set up. So yeah, I think you're pointing out that somebody needs to be liable for the uses of the generative AI content. And should AI companies be liable for my use? That is the question. Is it their responsibility that I use the content responsibly, and that I don't propagate misinformation or disinformation or, you know, otherwise abuse? They push the content on users. This is interesting. So they're like kind of a drug pusher in a way. So they're like saying first hit's free, come use our generative AI, which they are, like ChatGPT 4.0, and they're saying, oh, this is going to revolutionize. They are making grandiose claims about it. They should be liable, and they're having, you know, pretty massive effect on energy consumption and things like that too. So I'm not saying that they're without blame or liability, but yeah, I just don't know how they would be liable. And this is also coming back, another interesting and related content topic is that, like, the social media networks, should they be liable for the content people post with or without the use of generative AI? You know, or that's similar. So I'm just looking for precedent and other ways to illuminate this concept, because there's a lot of parallels. And, you know, in a way, the social networks and these algorithms on networks, they were our first encounter with, you know, wide spread artificial intelligence in terms of content curation, amplification, and now these large language models, in a way, and generative AIs are our second encounter massively with widespread artificial intelligence. So yeah, but we did carve out in laws some protections and exemptions for digital platforms like social media to be, you know, immune from liability for user-generated content. Yeah, because that's what it boils down to, is like me using the tool to do something. I'm using the tool. And so you could say, yeah, it's difficult. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't regulate them at all, but I'm just saying, like, to make the case for that, it might be challenging. All right, so we got some blogs. Let's get this vectorized. Let's see now then how to use it. You're triggering an index update. Multiple API calls will be triggered to chargeable services. Contents from index models will be sent to the third-party APIs. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. So I'm building the vector index, and blog page, vector index. Cool. Now I want to test it using vector indexes. Index query. All right. The query method gives me something. What's the difference between Django and React? Query response. Django is a full stack web framework providing a comprehensive solution for developing web applications with built-in features like ORM, routing, authentication, and more. It focuses on back-end development and is suitable for content-heavy sites and complex applications. On the other hand, React is a JavaScript library focused on building user interfaces. It works on the front end using component-based architecture to create dynamic, interactive web applications. React does not include built-in back-end features like routing or ORM, requiring additional frameworks or libraries for these functionalities. Sources, blog page, comparing web frameworks and libraries, Django versus React and Vue. Understanding Django as a web framework. Okay, let's try one. How can I make a turkey pot pie? Okay. To make a delicious turkey pot pie, follow these steps. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, dang it. Sources. Understanding Django's web framework. Comparing web frameworks and libraries. So it like sourced all 4 of my blog pages. So it's a bit of a bummer. All right. Yeah, it's been nice talking to you, Terrace. Update the Twitch icon to be not monochrome. Okay. I didn't know I could even update my Twitch icon. Yeah, I wonder how I do that. Where's that? On the settings or something like that? So we got the things vectorized, but I'm just getting generic responses back. So I don't think we're quite there yet. I'll have to dig deeper into this, but maybe stream manager. Where's my icon there? There's some branding. I have no idea about Twitch, to be honest. I'm just kind of hanging out here to chat with people. My channel. If I go to my channel, Oh. Yeah, that's me not knowing about Twitch. Manage my subs. Share, edit. Oh yeah, like my face, the monochrome picture of my face. Good point. I didn't ever actually think about that. That's a really good point. Yeah, I think I have a more. Okay, cool. Enjoy the show. Nice to see you, and hope to see you around the stream. Have a great day. I think I have a color picture of myself. That's not like from 2013 or 2008. That's a good one though. Anyway, I'm over here on the opposite screen. That was from climb up the side of a building in Sacramento. Yeah, there we go. That's my main one. All right, I've now updated my Twitch avatar to be color, not monochrome. That was a great suggestion. All right, so yeah, I think what we did, we made some good progress, but it's not having the results I'm hoping for. It's answering questions that are not in our context. So I think in one sense, I will need to create a custom chat that'll with a custom prompt that I can override and say not to respond. But the other sense is that it's these results. We might need to introduce re-ranking. also it's returning the whole page and not the snippet. So I would like to see, typically in a RAG solution, I would like to see the actual retrieval results. And to do that, we use actually chunking. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot more nuance here that needs to be done. Because these similarities could be because I used how can I make A, and the turkey pot pie is on there. I don't know what the similarity is based on, but it's literally returning all of my blog posts, so that wasn't good. But this is kind of what we're actually after, is search instead of query. This is kind of interesting. A query actually interacts with the large language model, and the first step was actually to make a search. Search, you know, okay, so if I search for Django, I should only get, what is a web framework? Django versus React and Vue. What is a vector database? Should not get vector database. No natural language response. So that's kind of unfortunate. So I think what I can do is take a break for tonight. Hey, what time is it? It's 4 a.m. Commit these, merge this pull request. We did make progress. And come back to it and see if I can control this result better. Maybe the ranking is good. I'm not sure how it's ranking or anything like that, but it shouldn't be bringing back irrelevant results. Now, granted, I did just generate this from AI without really reviewing them. But the vector database article doesn't really mention Django, which is why I sort of generated an extra one. And similarly, if I search for NLP, I should only get one result. But I get them all in the same order, actually different order. So that's good, it ranked them. All right. It should, okay, I see, because every one of them is going to have a similarity score, I'm thinking. So this doesn't guarantee actually that these are just not very similar and they're at the end of the list. But it's going to return all of the content, so that's kind of weird. Maybe there's a way. Maybe there's a way to specify a threshold. But yeah, this has been good progress. Let me just check the Wagtail docs. So if I can export these fixtures. Yeah, totally. I didn't notice that Twitch on the sidebar uses gray icons for the people who you're following who are offline. And yeah, I was using a monochrome image. So cool. Wow, great suggestion. This is from 2021. I think I've tried this at least since 2019, but so that sounds good. It's from 2021, so yeah, it could be outdated. That's what I was hoping the Wagtail docs would include. More up-to-date information. Maybe they do. It's not there, so I'll just delete it. All right. All right, so it looks like we got some fixture data. And the vectors. Ooh, very cool. All right. All right, we'll publish this branch. I think we've completed the sort of next step of adding the vector index, and now we need to learn to work with it and refine the results. If I want to use this on a search page, paginated search, we don't want to, with a keyword search, you don't want to return pages that don't have that keyword. There's got to be a threshold of similarity where we don't want to return results that are, below that threshold, or have a higher, what do you call that, cosine distance or something. I don't really know how it works, the mathematics of it. Great, this has been another session, Tech with Briley. We've made great progress working with Wagtail vector search on our hypothetical blog. It's quite an interesting project, and the goal is to have a search page that will return results based on vector search, as well as a little chat widget that you can chat with the document, and it'll return a retrieval augmented results as well as a response. And it'll also not respond if it doesn't find any results on the website. So it'll kind of tailor the conversation to the website content and help you navigate the website like a little companion, kind of like this little Wagtail here. That's the goal, and it's open source on GitHub, so you can check it out. Here's the current work we did in this session. I'll create a quick pull request. And let me know your thoughts. Stop on by if you got an idea. You can open an issue. If you want to make some changes, feel free, open a pull request. So yeah, hope you're doing well. Have a great day.